what are the locators? So there are multiple elements available in this HTML tag, but in that, what are the elements we are going to use? What are the locators we are going to take from that code? Okay, so for
Okay.
that, we have totally 8 locators. Okay, for 8 locators in the sense the locators list. So we can say that these are the locators: ID, name, class name, tag name, link text, partial link text, CSS selector, XPath. So these are all called locators. Okay, so locators are ID, name, class name, tag name, link text, partial link text, CSS selector, and XPath. We have totally 8 locators. So why we have 8 locators is, we will first priority, we will go for ID. If I have an ID for a specific element, I can use that name as my locator, ID name as my locator. Okay, so for example, see, for first box, this last name box, if I want to identify this box, I click on this. Can you see ID here?
Yes, yes.
So what is the value of that ID? Text 2. So this is my locator for this box. Text 2, if I say I'm going to identify this element using ID with the value of text 2 means it will automatically identify this box. If I want to identify this box, you can click on that. That name ID is text 3.
Okay.
Okay, so this is one of the locator. If ID is not there, you can go for name locator.
Hmm.
Okay, so if ID is there, your first priority needs to be given for ID. So you can use the ID value as your name for identifying this box. If ID is not there means you can go for the name locator. Okay,
Hmm.
both are not
Okay.
there. If ID is also not there, if name is also not there. So for example, I will go for this element, that is checkbox. Here see, I have ID, I have a name, but you can see that for this also your name is vehicle, for this also your name is vehicle. You should not use name as your locator for this. You can use either ID or we have a separate option. So if ID is there, not an issue. In some conditions, they will not give the ID, they will give name alone. You understood?
Hmm.
That is the priority we
Yes,
are
yes.
going to use. So first is
Hmm.
ID. So ID is mostly, they will be giving ID for text boxes, radio buttons, check boxes, and for buttons, you will be having the ID locator. Okay, and name
Okay.
locator will also be available for the same text boxes, radio button, check boxes, buttons, and all. You will be either having an ID or name. Either one can be used. Okay, class name
Okay.
is, we won't be using class name. Why? Because class name is somewhat difficult. Sometimes what they will do is they will be giving the same class name. So see, class name is not even available here. Can you see the class name anywhere in this coding? See, here it is there.
Oh.
But if you say class name, sometimes the
Hmm.
same class name will be used twice in the coding.
Okay.
So the
Hmm.
developer might have used the same name twice. So what will happen is, if I want to identify a particular element and if I try to identify that element using the class name means, it will be difficult. That will not identify the a particular element. It will identify it as a group. Okay,
Hmm.
if I
Okay.
want to identify one text box, but the developer has given the same class name for two text boxes means, if I use that class name means, what will happen? It will not be able to identify a particular text box. It will identify both the text boxes. Okay,
Okay.
it will not identify both the text box. It will show error saying that page element
Yes.
not found. That's it. So
Okay.
mostly It is a locator, but mostly we will not be using this locator. Okay, so mostly we
Hmm.
will be using ID or name for text boxes, radio button and all. But if it is a link, link is nothing but navigation. For navigation purpose, we use to click that text and it will navigate to another page. So that is called link. So here, which are called links, this one is a link. You will be able to
Hmm.
recognize the links, right? So this is a link.
Open new page. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a link. So if I want to identify this, for example, I'm going to click on this. See, there is no ID, no name. Can you see just a B tag and a tag is there? This is the link actually, but there is a no ID or name for this locator. But we
Hmm.
can directly say that for links alone, we are going to use either the link text or partial link text locator. So what is meant by link
Okay.
text? The complete text, whichever is given as a link, open new page is my link text. Open new
Okay.
page. Okay, so that is called the link text. But what is meant by partial link text is if I want to click this link, but I don't know the whole text. I want to specify only a partial text like open new or open. If I want to give only partial text means I can just say partial link text locator can be used. So for links
Hmm.
alone, we have two locators. One is link text and another one is partial link text. If you know the whole link text, you can use this link text locator. If you know only partial link text means you can use this partial link text locator. Okay, half of the text only you know, but that link is a whole long text. So for example, welcome to my website, it's a link. In that I remember only welcome to, or I want to identify the link which starts with welcome to means you can either use partial link text. But if you're going to give the whole text, welcome to my website means you can just give link text as your locator.
Hmm.
Identify the difference, right? So these are all for text boxes, radio buttons, and for links alone there is no other option available. You need to either use link text or partial link text.
Okay.
Okay, and next is CSS selector. Again, this is also same like class name. Here also, we are not going to use CSS selector. Why? Because CSS selector is nothing but the for designing purpose only they will be using CSS tags. Okay, these are called
Hmm.
CSS tags. So CSS tags will also be common for multiple elements. Okay,
Okay.
so mostly if I try to identify an element using CSS selector means it will generate error. Why? Because we can't exactly find the element using CSS selector. These are
Hmm.
all
Okay.
old tags. Still they are having these locators available, but we will be mostly using this ID and name locator. We will be using tag name also, link text, partial link text, and mainly we will be using XPath. Okay, so
Okay.
these locators
Okay.
we will be using as a locator. So then partial selector we will not be needing. And what is tag name means? Tag name is nothing but if I want to identify some elements. See, this is my table. So this is my table. So in this table it consists of multiple rows. Can you see multiple rows? This is one row, this is one row, this is one row. So these are
Yes.
all HTML tags. If I want to
Hmm.
calculate the number of rows or the number of data inside the table, at that time I'll be using the locator called tag name. Okay, so based on the
Okay.
tag name, if I want to fetch some information means I'll be using the tag name locator. So we'll be seeing the programs for each and every locator. So you need
Hmm.
not worry about that. But as of now, I'm just explaining all the tags first. Then we will see how to write the syntax of that locator. Then we will write it in the program.
Okay, okay.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking only about the elements which are not having the ID or name tag. Okay, so name
Okay,
locator is not available. We need to go for another options. That's it. So out
mm.
of this eight, whichever you need, you can use it. XPath is the common locator which can be used for any element. It is not
Okay,
like you need to have ID, you need to have name. If none of the tags are available, you can use go for XPath. Okay, if you
okay.
want to identify it by element, even though if I have ID also, I can go for XPath, no issues. I have ID for a
Mm.
text box, but I don't want to use that ID. Instead of that, I want to go for XPath also, you can use. Or if the ID is not there, or name is not there, or if this is not a link and this is not a tag name, none of the locators are working for me, means you can go for XPath. So
Okay.
XPath is like an exceptional locator. You can use it for any elements.
Mm.
Okay, and this is again in one of the interview question. They will be asking you by compulsory. They will be asking you. So, what are the types of XPath? There are two types of XPaths available. One is absolute XPath and the relative XPath.
Okay,
Okay, so previously it was difficult to identify the XPath. They need to, as I said before, you will be installing a small plugin called Firepath. For all this, we need Firebug before. Okay, Firebug plugin. But for specifically for this XPath alone, they will be installing Firepath plugin. Okay, but now we are not using that. Without this plugin itself, we are going to identify the XPath of the element. Okay,
okay.
but so you need to explain this. So without using if they ask you how you identify the XPath, means you need to say that we will go to inspect element and how we are going to identify the XPath of the element. So how do we identify the XPath? Is same process. You can click on the arrow, go to the particular element, click on that. You can't see XPath here directly. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to this text, which is the that is the code of that particular element. You're going to right click on that and you will be having a copy option.
Mm.
Okay, in that you have XPath and full XPath, two options available. Okay, so first one
Okay,
is XPath and second one is full XPath. So what is mean by full XPath is nothing but the absolute XPath. Okay, so I will
okay,
show
okay.
you what is absolute XPath. I will copy this and show you how it looks. So for the same element, for this element, this is the tag used. I'm going to copy the full XPath and I'm going to paste it here. This is full XPath of that particular text box. Last name text box. Okay. So I will delete this. I don't want to confuse this. Okay. Now I will show you the normal XPath. This is another XPath, which is called the relative XPath. Okay. So what is the difference between these two? It is
Locator.
the direct identity. We are directly identifying the element without following any rules or without going step by step. If I found out an element directly, means it is called a relative XPath, or absolute XPath is by step. So it is, you can go here and we can check it. See, this is my form. Inside this I have the last name, so it starts from here. See, we can, from the box we can identify. It starts from HTML body tag and it is div3 where it starts. HTML, from here it is starting HTML, then body tag, then this div, and below this div we have multiple divs. So every path, every step by step procedure is given in the, so we have these many divs before it go coming back to the form, then it ends with the input. Here all these paths are considered as a relative path. Okay, so
Hmm.
it directly goes to the id is equal to text2. So what is mean by id is equal to text2? That box direct
That
value.
name, yeah,
Yeah,
the ID of that.
yes, it directly identifies id is equal to text. Okay, so
Okay.
what is mean by this one? Star, it is the
Uh,
regular expression. So instead of using the whole path, we are compressing and we are directly, it is an, as it is a unique element, it has an id, so it directly direct me to that particular path. Okay,
okay.
so that is why we are using star here. So always another thing is, always the absolute path starts with the single slash and the relative path starts with the double slash. That is also the
Oh, okay.
difference. So it will have a single slash in the beginning and it will have a double slash in the beginning for relative XPath.